how good is Damage Magicka in Morrowind? First, let's compare the cost. 100 points of Damage Magicka on touch costs 80 Magicka, which is the same price as Damage Health or Absorb Health. In comparison, 100 points of fire damage on touch costs only 50 Magicka. As you can see, it doesn't really compare favorably against direct damage. It's just as expensive as the second most expensive direct damage spell. The only spell that is worse is Poison. And even compared with Poison, you need to keep in mind two things. Firstly, Poison, unless resisted, does direct damage to enemy HP. Meanwhile, even if you empty an enemy mage out of all the Magicka, they will still be moving around. You're still in combat, you still can't loot them, and the enemy mage may still have a weapon they can use. Second, even if you consider a mage with 0 Magicka as defeated, it'll likely take more Magicka to achieve that than if you just targeted health instead. NPC mages usually have more Magicka than they do health, sometimes even 2 or 3 times as much. This is just when comparing Damage Magicka to the most expensive health damaging option. It gets even worse when the comparison is to a much cheaper spell like Frost Damage. Damage Magicka does have one thing going for it: Magicka doesn't regenerate in Morrowind, so the loss is permanent. In that regard, it's at least better than Drain. But there are better options around still. The most cost-effective option is to just dodge until the mage empties their Magicka on their own. I was going to mention that option in the video about Drain Magicka, but I already covered extensively just how bad that spell is, and didn't feel like adding more insult to injury. Another option would be Damage Intelligence. Now, if you cast this spell on the viewer of this video, it would change nothing. But if you reduce an enemy mage to 0 intelligence, they can't cast anymore. 0 intelligence means 0 Magicka in Morrowind. The Damage Attribute spell is technically just as expensive as Damage Magicka. 100 points of Damage Intelligence on touch costs 80 Magicka. A mage may have 100 Magicka, but they may also have 200 or even 300 Magicka. However, they are never going to have more than 100 intelligence, so Damage Intelligence is usually going to be more efficient to use. Another spell that might be more cost efficient is Silence, but it sort of depends on circumstances. 10 seconds of Silence on touch only costs 23 Magicka. That's a good price, but keep in mind that the effect is only temporary and the enemy can resist it with a high willpower. So if you silence your enemy, you should try to brutally murder them during the pause in casting, if you want to be efficient with your Magicka at least. Or you can throw all that I just said in the trash and just do whatever feels the most fun. Though in my opinion, Damage Magicka has the dubious honor of being both expensive and boring. Use it if you like, I won't. What does Damage Magicka look like in Oblivion? Well, you see, the problem is that while a Damage Magicka spell does exist in-game, its use in spellmaking is actually disabled. The one spell that does exist is called Sever Magicka. 30 points of Damage Magicka on target. You can buy it at the Skingrat Mages Guild. At 75 destruction, this spell costs 14 Magicka. In comparison to that, 30 damage health on target costs 69 Magicka, while 30 fire damage on touch costs 43 Magicka. At 75 destruction, Sever Magicka also costs the exact same as Drain Magicka, 30 points on target for 14 seconds. There could be an argument for using Damage Magicka in Oblivion, since it seems fairly cheap. However, since you can't make custom spells, you'd need to live with having to spam this low magnitude spell only. You can, however, use Damage Magicka in enchanting. If you are interested in this effect, I suggest forgoing the spell and going straight for the enchantments instead. Also, it says on the wiki that you can't decrease NPC Magicka by lowering their intelligence. That may work in Morrowind, but apparently not in Oblivion. If you want to know what weakness to common disease is good for, see this video next. By the way, even if I cover Oblivion a bit more now, my main focus is still going to be Morrowind. I just want to take advantage of the spike in interest. Considering that my remastered birth sign change video got about 0 views, I might abandon that strategy fairly quickly. Thanks for watching.